We are live.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday night stream here on the Alpha Romero channel. I hope everybody's doing well out there. Everybody had a good week. Everybody had a good weekend. Everybody's still feeling the power and excitement from the new Twilight of the Dead film that's coming. It's gotten a lot of traction. I mean, I've seen a lot of people talking about it. I mean, Uncle Bill was talking about it on the Dead Pit show the other night. I've seen quite a few YouTubers talking about it. So who knows? Maybe this thing's going to happen. Maybe it's not. You guys, if you watched my stream on it, I did kind of a breaking news stream. If you guys didn't check that out, check it out. It's on my channel. I'm going to do it Wednesday, I think. It's just one of those things, impromptu stream that I wanted to do just to talk about it because I saw so much news about it everywhere, from Entertainment Weekly to Fangoria to anywhere and everywhere. You've kind of seen it. So yeah, we're all still, I don't have much hope for it. I mean, I'm just, it is what it is. But tonight, figured, and like I said last week when I did the stream, I don't know what the hell I'm doing week to week. It really is just kind of a whatever I feel like doing on these streams each week. It could change. I really don't know. It just depends on what I'm in the mood for. And all this talk about the new film, the possibility of there being a Twilight of the Dead, another entry in the George Romero zombie universe. It kind of got me in the mood, believe it or not, to want to go back and watch Survival of the Dead again. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to do a live watch along of Survival of the Dead, George's last zombie film, but last film in general. If you guys haven't checked it out, I put up the Walking After Midnight documentary that was included. Where's that? So yeah, included on the Survival of the Dead Blu-ray and DVD. They're pretty much the exact same release, just one's Blu-ray, one's DVD. I don't know if we'll ever get a 4K of this. I'm sure some company out there will do something with it eventually. I think there's going to need to be some time to go by before before there's a demand for it, I guess. So yeah, it kind of got me in the mood. I went back and watched that documentary again. It's a great documentary. I mean, it's Michael Felsher with Red Shirt Pictures. Anything that he does, his documentaries are fantastic. Of course, he did, After Effects, the memories of Pittsburgh filmmaking, which is pretty much the making of the film effects. He did the Creep Show documentary, Just Desserts. One for the Fire he worked on the Night of the Living Dead 40th anniversary DVD release. And it's amazing because Felsher was really good friends with George. He actually, and I wish I would have asked him this when I ran into him at Living Dead weekend this year. Apparently, before George's passing, Felsher kind of sat down with George and went through his entire. They spent like a week going through George's entire filmography from Night of the Living Dead all the way up to Survival of the Dead, and they rewatched everything. And Felsher sat down with them and recorded a conversations that he had with George, getting George's thoughts, looking back. Because a lot of the stuff, George hadn't seen in years and years and years. I don't know what he plans on doing with those interviews, or he's going to make a podcast out of it. If he's going to do something with the Garf. He's kind of floated a few ideas out, but whenever he plans on releasing those or whatever he's going to do with them, that's one of those things that that and the Martin black and white 2.5 hour cut. Those are the two things right now that I'm just on edge to to eventually see, hear, what have you. But yeah, anytime that Felsher worked with George on a documentary, or I think it you can see the love that Felsher had for George, and I think George. I mentioned this in a comment on the channel earlier. I think you can see George's comfort level with Michael. It really comes through, and you get some really great stuff. I mean, you get a peek into seeing George just being George, not George the filmmaker, George the zombie Godfather, George the independent, icon, independent film icon. You just get to see George being George, and you see quite a bit of that in that Walking After Midnight. So if you haven't checked it out yet, I definitely recommend checking out Walking After Midnight. It is included on the Survival of the Dead release. So if you have that, you can watch it on that, or you can check it out on my channel. But there's a lot of really good stuff, and of course, there's stuff about the making of Survival of the Dead, and some a few comments here and there. There's one comment I think. I can't remember the guy's name. As you'll tell as we're watching this, I've seen Survival of the Dead probably the least of any George's films. Period. And I know not. Like when it comes to Dawn of the Dead or something, it's like my head's just full of just useless bullshit knowledge. But when it comes to Survival of the Dead, it's I don't know too much. But but you heard things in the documentary. It just kind of like, what the fuck are these people smoking? You're like, oh, this is gonna be the best one since Night of the Living Dead, and yada yada yada. And it's just like, okay. But I guess when you're working on the film, you're kind of in the in the stratosphere of it or whatever. But so yeah, we're just gonna go back. We're gonna rewatch Survival of the Dead tonight. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of this film. And I think it's just in the context of how I'm watching it. When I first saw the film, I actually downloaded it off of there used to be a website. I don't know if it still exists or not, but it was called the piratebay.com, where you could get torrents for anything and everything. And it was at a period where the film was still kind of making the rounds, festivals, and the limited theatrical run that it had. And I remember, it wasn't playing anywhere near where I was. I'm in Kentucky. So I went there and downloaded it and watched it. And the first time I watched it, I actually really liked it. And of course, I think I was in the headspace to really like it because it was a new George film. And at the time, what I wanted out of a Romero film, because why I was kind of disappointed when I first saw Land of the Dead. It felt too big. It felt too Hollywood for me, and that's why I really enjoyed Diary of the Dead when I first saw it. Because I was like, oh, this feels like a independent Romero film, and this one feels, Survival definitely feels very similar to that. It's definitely low budget. It's definitely independently made. They shot it up in Toronto. And you watch the documentary, and there you could see all the issues and the problems with the weather, and even George himself. At one point in the documentary was kind of lamenting that going back and looking at there's some things that just didn't quite work the way he had hoped they would. I think that's. I think there were a lot of issues with Survival of the Dead, and a lot of things plagued that film from the beginning, I think. And of course, I mean, it was just there was this weird period because George couldn't get a fucking film made from the early '90s through pretty much the early 2000s. I mean, we all know the story of him in the '90s, or with Resident Evil and The Mummy and all these things that he wrote tons and tons of screenplays and in the 90s, and couldn't get anything made. And then there was that period when 28 Days Later kind of started it all. I know a lot of people say, oh, the Dawn of the Dead remake, and it's like, yeah, I'm sure that had it had a effect on the landscape at the time in the early 2000s. But the 28 Days Later, when that came out, I mean, and people kind of forget that we hadn't really seen a film like 28 Days Later previous. I mean, it was something completely new. The way it was shot and the way that the zombie apocalypse was portrayed, completely new territory. And so it kind of revitalized the interest in the genre, and it revitalized the interest in George, and that's how Land of the Dead got made. And then after Land of the Dead, I mean, it was just like he was just cranking out zombie films. He made Land of the Dead, and then about a year or so later, he made Diary. And Diary came out, and it was actually fairly successful in terms of home video sales and DVDs, and I guess home video at the time was DVDs. I don't think there's a VHS of Diary. So Diary came out, was a success. It made made its budget back and then some. So I mean, and that's the thing. And when it comes to filmmaking, is if you can make a film with a low budget and you can make your budget back and make the studio more money, they're going to keep letting you make films. And that's kind of what they did with Survival. And Diary came out, it was successful, it made money, and they went right back to George and said, "Hey, you got another one of these? We'll make it." And George at the time, and George is often spoken about, or had often spoken about, um, the urge to want to make something else. Yeah, you know, he during this period in the 2000s, he was kind of known as the zombie guy. I mean, I remember he was, you know, uh, maybe at the height of his popularity as just a public figure in the 2000s. I mean, I remember hearing him on Opie and Anthony at one point. That he did at the Fangoria Awards. Quentin Tarantino uh, gave him, or presented him a lifetime achievement award or something. I mean, he was kind of all over the place. He was a fairly popular name at the time. I mean, conventions. I mean, forget about it. But so yeah, Diary came out. It was successful. They gave him the money to make another one. So I mean, this is probably a screenplay that George banged out in a short period of time. And I think you can tell that when you watch the film. I think that's one of the weaker points of this film is the screenplay, some of the dialogue, some of um, and it is what it is. But I think when Survival came out, I don't think it was as successful as Diary, and I think that's it. Kind of brought it into George's career, um, and maybe not the most spectacular fashion. Because in the documentary, you hear George at the end talking about, I got. He said it himself. He had two more of these that he had in his head that he was prepared to do. Twilight of the Dead, possibly being one of them. So I mean, it's unfortunate we didn't get we didn't get to see it. He didn't get to do it because George, at this point in his career, George was just kind of, to me, and in my interpretation, the way that I feel looking back on interviews and whatnot, I feel like this was just a period where George was just having fun. George loved to make film. He loved being on set, chain smoking, drinking coffee, in the elements, doing his thing. I mean, that's where George, you could tell, felt comfortable. And if the only thing that they were going to let him make, if the only thing he could get a budget for were these zombie films, then he's just going to keep making zombie films. But he was just going to, layer in, what the type of stories he wanted to tell at the time. The Diary of the Dead, it was the first person, handheld camera story, and Diary is, to me, I think, very ahead of its time, and in a lot of ways, in terms of social media and YouTube. And then Survival's kind of the tribalism that we're still experiencing, in the United States right now, where it's, two warring factions, two differing ideas who are just, unable to really come to the table and discuss or debate, or they just want to fight it out because I'm right and you're wrong. And and it's funny because that's never the case. Nobody's just 100% right. The other side's just 100% wrong. But for some reason in our brains, we just, well, these people are completely wrong. I'm right. The way I think, the way I look at the world is right. So that's kind of where, Survival of the Dead came from, at this point in George's career. It's not his most popular. It's probably his least popular film. Very rarely do you see comments or people talking about how much they love Survival of the Dead. I mean, you hear good things about Land, you hear good things about Diary. You don't hear too many good things about Survival, and it's one of those films that I've watched very little. I mean, in relative to the rest of George's catalog, I've probably seen it. I say this very little, but I've probably seen it maybe 10 times. Since it came out. Just a rough guess, and to me that's a very small amount of times. When considering that I've probably seen, Dawn of the Dead hundreds and hundreds of times at this point. So for a psychopath like me who just loves George as much as I do, 10 times is very low. So this will be the first time I've watched the film in quite some time, quite a few years actually. So I'm going to try to go back, give it a fresh look, kind of look at it with new eyes, and see, like I said, the first time I saw it, I kind of liked it. It was kind of what I was looking for. You know, it wasn't perfect, but there's parts in it that I enjoyed. You know, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was, you know, but as the more times I viewed it, the more I was just like, this doesn't work. This doesn't work for some reason. Like the acting, the CGI. There's bad CGI in it, and I can't stand CGI. You know, outside of, you know, taking off Gary Sinise's legs in Forrest Gump or something like that. Somewhere where it's used tastefully. Um, but a lot of the, you know, the gags and stuff, and especially his last three films, um, I'm just not. I was not a big fan of those. In terms of the CGI visual effects or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna react or feel about this film watching it again tonight. But I'm looking forward to it. You know, watching the documentary. You know, I'm gonna try to give it a fresh perspective. And, you know, give it a fresh look. So we'll get into that here in just a second because I don't want to be on here all night. But before I do that, I kind of want to do a quick show and tell. So here in Evansville, there's a little flea market that's open I think once a month, one weekend out of the year. The first weekend, one weekend out of the year, the first weekend of every month, there's a little flea market, and there's a booth, an older gentleman who just has tons of comic books and, you know, VHS tapes and just so much shit. But he also has a ridiculous collection of original movie posters, original one sheets, for really, really cheap. I mean, it's insane. And I was able to pick out a couple of pretty cool ones yesterday. So I want to kind of bring them on here and show them. And the first one's not George related, but I think it is. You know, I think it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's a perfect thing to find. And when I found it, he was just like, "Well, shit, I forgot that was in there." But of course, we all know Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens, just recently died. And it's gonna be kind of weird. I'm gonna try to back up a little, but I was able to find an original one sheet. You can't see shit on this, of Pee Wee Herman and Pee Wee's Big Adventure. I was pretty stoked to find that. $25. Folded. I mean, it's in pretty damn good condition. And I looked on eBay, and these things are going for, you know, $200-300 right now. So pretty cool to find that. And I love this film. This is one of those films that I've watched over and over again because they used to play it on like HBO and stuff all the time back in the day. So yeah, I don't really collect a lot of stuff outside of Romero because my theory on collecting is if I'm going to spend money and time on collecting something, I need to narrow it down because if I don't, I'm just going to have a bunch of junk that I'm just going to have nothing to do with. But I found that, and I thought it was pretty damn cool. Pretty excited to find that. Then the other thing I found, which is George related, that I did not have, and honestly, I don't really see a lot of these. I have seen a lot of these online or especially out in the wild in somewhere like Evansville, Indiana. But I was able to nab. Let me stand up. It's an original. This is the video store poster for Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead 90. Pretty decent shot over here. It's not in the best condition. It's a little worn. There's some tears there on the edges, some folds. But $25, and like I said, it's not something I've really seen a whole lot of on eBay. So I couldn't help myself. I don't know where I'm going to put it yet, but definitely hanging this sucker up somewhere. So, of course, up here in the corner, all new 1990 theatrical version. So that's pretty cool. I was pretty stoked to find that. So yeah, little show and tell there. Pretty cool. And I mean, this means quite a bit to me personally, just because Night of the Living Dead 90 was the first. I think it was the first zombie film I ever saw as a kid. And this VHS, the cover and everything, was the one that I rented and first time I saw it. So I couldn't pass it up. I had to talk myself into it because at first I was like, I'm sure I can find this on eBay somewhere. I don't know how rare this is or what the hell, $25. And like I said, you don't really see a lot of these on eBay. I know I haven't. You see a lot of the actual theatrical posters, but not too many of the actual like video store posters that they'd have hanging up in Blockbuster or wherever. So yeah, I thought that was a pretty good find. Both of those. So yeah, just wanted to share that. Straight Edge Zombie, what's up, brother? See you in here. Hit a wrong thing. So yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and get into switch my here. We'll go ahead and get into this Survival of the Dead commentary. Like I said, I'm gonna give it a fair shot. I got it queued up here. It's on the menu screen. Cool thing about the DVD and the Blu-ray is that when you go to the menu screen, there's actually an option where you can pick, whether you're on the side of the living or the side of the dead, and it gives you two different menus. That's creative. It's fairly cool that they did that. All right. So I got the sound on here. I, of course, sided with the dead on this one, so that's the screen that I'm looking at. So if you guys want to watch at home, if you want to sync it up and kind of watch it in your own time, you can do that as well. Right now I'm on the menu screen. And all right, I'm going to click play movie here on the count of 3. I'll count down from 3. So if you're watching at home, you can kind of sync it up. And I'll just give my thoughts on seeing this film for the first time in a number of years. So here we go. In 3, 2, 1, play. Oh, fuck. Okay, now it's asking play movie with introduction from George A. Romero. Of course, we're going to do that. So here we go. At this point in George's career, he was just really having a lot of fun. Here he is shooting a zombie in the head. George is just having a lot of fun with just being the zombie guy. He was kind of, steering into it at this point. And I guess that's the kind of the way you have to look at survival. Diary, survival, everything from this time period. It was just George was having fun, doing what he loved to do, make films. Are they masterpieces? No. Were they his best work? No. Not in my opinion, at least. But he was having fun. Here he is shooting another zombie. So now we see a... I forgot about this. It's George trying to introduce the film, but everything's just going wrong. Zombies are around him. Body parts are falling off. Oh, he's got it. And he says it there. Don't forget to laugh. So we're not supposed to take this film too seriously, which I don't think anybody does. Magnet released this. And Artfire Films, I believe that's the name of the film company that him and Peter Grunwald were kind of running at the time. Well, no, no. So yeah, Romero Grunwald Productions is the production company that they were doing. Artfire, I believe, is the studio they gave the money to do it. They also did Diary of the Dead as well. Of course, this is Alan Van Sprang, who's in George's previous films, Land of the Dead and Diary of the Dead. And apparently, this is the character from Diary of the Dead, Brubaker. No, Brubaker is Land of the Dead. The fuck is his name of this? Crockett or Sprocket or something? I remember seeing his. I guess his actual Nicotine Crockett was like his actual full name in the screenplay. I was never the biggest fan of his performance either, to be honest with you. And this opening scene, they touched on it in the documentary. They actually shot this months and months after the fact, after they wrapped on the film originally. I don't know why. George kind of explains it in the documentary that you know he wanted to add a little something extra to it because kind of times things had changed over those months. I'm not sure. I don't know really know what this adds, to be honest with you. Zombie gets shot in the head. And first zombie bite of the film. And here comes a really bad CGI effect. Not that gunshot to the head, but this thing. See, cool in theory, but kind of failed in practice. So yeah, this is the scene from Diary of the Dead that kind of introduced these characters, I guess. Cool thing to do. It kind of works to watch if you watch Diary of the Dead, Survival of the Dead, and then Land of the Dead. It kind of follows this character. There's kind of an arc of this character of although the names are different, but you just overlook that fact. It kind of works out. Kind of works. So Plum Island, I believe this was shot. Where did they say this was shot? It was off the coast of fucking. I forget. I can't remember. Like I said, it's just one of the Romero films I know know the least about in terms of the details. The stuff shot on the island, though, I think looks really, really good. The scope of it, it gives this film a little bit of a scope that I think really adds to it. I do really enjoy this actor's performance in this, though. Let's see, Kenneth Welch is his name. He passed away um, a couple of years ago, I think. Now there's a horse, and yes, this film does have a zombie horse. Or not a zombie horse, but a zombie riding a fucking horse, which is worse. It does have zombies eating a horse too at some point, so that's the thing. Like, it's kind of this film's just kind of all over the map in terms of like what what are zombies able to do? What are they not able to do? Apparently, they eat animals. And George kind of tries to explain it in that documentary where in Night of the Living Dead, there's the zombie, Marilyn Eastman eats the bug off the tree, and of course in Night 90, there's the zombie that sticks the mouse in his mouth. So maybe they do eat animals too. What the hell? I don't know. And you could really tell this was kind of George just kind of having an excuse to make a western. I feel like they're not going to give George the money to make an actual western, so he's got to put zombies in it. Yeah, the acting here is not bad. It's not that bad. There's some stuff coming up that's just not very good. People texting me here. Let me. Oh, hellfire! Turn this shit off. Okay. Oh my god! I just turned this off. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to turn this fucking text messages off. It's coming through on my computer now too. So, and then this friend of mine loves to text. I send like 5 or 6 texts in a row. He's not one of those people that likes to just send one text. He's got to text, 1,000 thoughts and 1,000 different fucking texts. So I apologize. God damn. And we just watched this woman get blown away over here by she's kind of fucked up. She wouldn't even bid or anything. But good performance here by this actor. Having to shoot his wife, which goes back to I think that also goes back to the idea that you can become a zombie by you don't have to get bit, you just have to die, um, as long as you don't get your head cut off or shot in the head or something. So all right, let's hope he's done sending texts right now because I don't know how to fucking turn that off. So the O'Flynn's and the Muldoons, I believe, are the name of the two warring factions. I guess it's supposed to be kind of like the Hatfields and McCoys. There's Muldoon. So basically, the whole idea is that the Muldoons want to save the dead and kind of hope for a cure or whatever eventually, and the O'Flynn's are kind of they just want to shoot them all, which they both have a point, and it mirrors Day of the Dead quite a bit and the two warring factions between the military and the scientists. The scientists, Sarah's looking for a cure, a way to reverse, the process, and the military just wants to, blow the piss out of them, so to speak. So we're basically just trying to set up the whole warring families dynamic here. Performances are not bad. Um, Especially between these two characters, Kenneth Welsh and the guy playing Muldoon here. Now, like I said, the screenplay, some of the dialogue is a little corny. Make the Pope weep, as Mark Borchardt would say. um, like I said, the screenplay was probably written in a very, very short amount of time. Because I think this came out, this was, this went into production, I think maybe a year after Diary of the Dead came out. So yeah, George was cranking these out at the time. So now they're about to ship O'Flynn out to sea to who knows where. I think I would have liked this film a lot more if we would have just stuck with these characters, the Muldoons and the O'Flynns and, the military people. I think that's my biggest issue with this film is just kind of, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. It's just from my memory of watching this previously. But I guess if you stuck with the O'Flynns and the Muldoons, if you would really, you're really stuck with two, I don't know, anti-hero, unlikable people. Because both of them are just assholes. Whether you believe one of them's right, one of them's wrong, whichever side you're on in this, um, they're both fairly asshole people. So now we're back in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The military group. That's I forget his name, but he's an actual talk show host in Canada. And you see a lady masturbating. That's interesting. Very open about it too. I mean, I understand you got to do what you got to do. But it's interesting. Like, this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, if they try to make it out like, at what point in the zombie apocalypse are we at right now? There's still, internet. There's still watching a late night talk show host kind of discussing what's going on and making jokes about it. Is it? I don't know. Oh, this is one of the worst parts of the film. This is where the film, to me, I roll my eyes the hardest. So they're coming upon this armored car. So yeah, this is what they're going to drive to the island or whatever. Not drive to the island, but to the boat to get to the island. Which is a good vehicle to drive in a zombie apocalypse. Don't get me wrong, but so yeah, these redneck characters, especially this main one here that has all the dialogue. I've said this before. I'll reiterate. Nothing just takes me out of a film, just takes me out of a movie, just irks me more than a bad Southern accent. As somebody who grew up in the South around a lot of Southern accents, heavy Southern accents, I'm pretty good at telling a really shitty fake Southern accent from another one. This sounds like a Canadian trying to do a Southern American accent, and you can really tell. And things right there. And then we got a bunch of zombie heads on sticks here. Some really bad CGI. Again, fun concept, doesn't really work. Bad CGI. Which is going to be a running theme. There's quite a few that I remember of just being like, "Fuck, this is bad." Jimmy G in the house tonight. What's up, man? Finally caught me live. I'll be in Cranberry Township in October. Looking forward to it. Good, man. I'm planning on being there. I got a hotel book. This would be the first time I've ever gone to a Living Dead weekend in Evans City for the Night of the Living Dead 55th anniversary reunion. So tentatively planning on being there. It just depends on financially where I'm at the time. There's also Scarefest going on in Lexington, which is a little closer to home. That same weekend, Laurie Cardill, Terry Alexander, Jarlath Conroy is going to be there. John Amblis is going to be there. Warner Shook. So there's quite a few. I'm debating whether or not I just want to kind of go, maybe stay a little close to home, or make the trip back to Pittsburgh again. Which, believe me, I'd love to make a trip to Pittsburgh once a month if I could, but Monroeville kind of tapped me out on it financially. So we'll see. If I do end up making it, man, definitely if you spot me, say hello. Love to meet you. So now we meet this kid. Another one of my not another one of my least favorite characters in this film. Not a bad line. This is my shit. They stole it from me. So yeah, I just think like the timeline in this film is just like where are we? Like I said, if you watch this in order from Diary to this to Land, kind of makes sense. So I guess we can kind of think it's somewhere in between. So, you know, somewhere in between. The world's fucked, it's gone to hell, and then the world is in hell. You know. So now they're off in the armored car. The kid swallowed the key, and they're not standing around waiting for him to take a shit. So they're driving around with a shitload of money, whatever that means. And that's the thing about the title of this film too, Survival of the Dead. Pretty much everybody was kind of, I guess, on set. Nobody really knew, and they apparently, according to the documentary, nobody knows where that title came from. But I guess they were trying to go with Island of the Dead or something at first. But I like George's idea to just call it enough of the dead. Wow, an early iPod. I guess they were called iPod Touch at the time. The original. Well, no, what the fuck were those called? I'm not very technically savvy. The original iPods with the screen. I remember the first time seeing those at my friend worked at AT&T and he showed me. I was like, "Holy shit! You can watch YouTube videos on your phone now. This is insane." And now you're probably watching me on your phone. So crazy where technology comes. So I guess cell service and internet service and all that's still up and running at this point. We're still making videos apparently. Uh, I don't know what the point of this scene is with Crockett or whatever his name is blowing off a little steam. I guess that's what they called it here. So now they're going to go try to meet up with O'Flynn, who I guess is landed, um, floated across the ocean and landed on the mainland here, and is now offering his services to try to get back to his island. I gotta be honest, I'm not hating this as much as I was dreading because as time goes on, you talk about it and you hear people talk about it. And it's one of those films that I just don't think about too much. But kind of watching the documentary, like I said, going back and rewatching the documentary, Walking After Midnight, and it's not that bad. I think one of my least favorite things about this film is probably the score. Some of the score here is a little corny. Definitely could have been better. Here's one of the gags. He's got the guy fishing on top of the shed here, and he pulls up a zombie, and then it's one of those gags that probably didn't, to me, doesn't come off as well as George was probably hoping the first time that he wrote this down and envisioned it. And this was like one of the first scenes. And I remember the first time, like back in the day, there was like the website upcoming horror films, or was it upcominghorrormovies.com? And that's where I'd get all my horror news. And I remember they posted this scene here, and I remember watching, and I was like, "This looks kind of shitty." I hope the rest of the movie's better. See, like the score, man, it's just not. It's just it sounds cheap. Was John Harrison not available for this? It all. I mean, this is just. It's one of those scores that just sounds like everything else. There's nothing distinct about it. And I think that's one of the big things that. Um, it's one of the big things that's was kind of missing from George's work from like I'd say like Monkey Shines on. It's not. There's no distinguishable soundtrack or score to any of those films after the fact. They were all just kind of cookie cutter. Although Christopher Young did do the score for The Dark Half, I believe, and he's the same guy that did the original score for the first Hellraiser film, which I think the music in Hellraiser is fantastic. But it's just kind of like standard, horror movie scores. So now the soldiers are getting shot at in their armored car by O'Flynn's crew. And here comes some zombies, and one just got blown to shit. So I guess O'Flynn's just trying to lure people to this area to rob them and kill them, I guess. Fuck, they're shooting at them. So now they're going to try to get to this ferry. The guy playing Cisco's not too bad. So they're trying to get to the ferry so they can drive the truck on there with it because it's got all the money on it. A little convoluted. But there's something going on, I mean, shit. So yeah, this is definitely just more of a action. I feel like it's more of an action film than a horror film at this point. There's not a lot of scares, whereas Land of the Dead tried to get you with some cheap scares, and Diary of the Dead definitely the same thing. This feels like more of an action piece, low budget action, but action nonetheless. I think the thing that's really missing just from watching this so far, there's an aspect of I don't know that the feeling of dread and then just letting it sink into these characters that the world is coming to an end and all that. This is there's I don't feel that in this at all. I feel like we're literally just kind of watching. I don't feel like any of these characters have really thought about it too much. They're just kind of doing what they got to do. And whereas in like Dawn, you get the scene with Peter and Roger down in the basement, and Day of the Dead by far. I mean, literally people. It's a movie about people losing their fucking minds, living underground, and trying to cope with the idea that this is the end of the world. I feel like that's missing in this. And here comes a really bad fucking effect. Really bad gag with the fire extinguisher in the zombie's mouth. And fuck, that looks terrible. And I love if you watch the documentary, they're trying to explain to Felcher like how it works and what it does, and they're going through this whole complicated process. Like, oh, then it goes from a tank to this tank, and then you stick in your mouth and blah blah blah. and you literally just shoots water or whatever into Felcher's mouth, and it's just like, okay, now once your mouth is full, just spit it back out. It's like you could have accomplished that same effect with just a regular garden hose or something, you know. But they made it just this huge process. It's like, no, you know, what the fuck. But that's a terrible effect. I mean, that looked like a fucking cartoon. Again, would have been cool if done well. But I think that's the one big thing of that hurts this film a lot too. Is a lot of the stuff just wasn't done well. And George, you know, said himself, you know, a lot of stuff didn't quite work the way he had hoped it would or envisioned it. So now they're backing up the ferry to try to get the armored car on there. Okay, that's very cartoonish. I mentioned that effect being cartoonish a minute ago, but the grenade blowing up and the guys standing there with the black on their face, not black face, but the black on their face from the explosion. It's like something right out of Looney Tunes. And again, George said, you know, have fun. Don't take it too seriously. You know, remember to laugh. You know, that was in the introduction. So, oh, that was a pretty good zombie bite. And I will say, I do appreciate the fact that they are using squibs on this film. So when somebody does get shot, zombie gets shot in the head, you do get that back spray, and it is actual blood. Because I see so many still to this day, and I understand they do it for financial reasons, for budgetary reasons, but you see that CGI blood, and you see it in Land of the Dead, um, big time, and in times you just get that CGI blood just kind of sprays and then just fucking disappears into thin air. I do love this gag here with O'Flynn and the dynamite. Open the door, zombie. Zombie takes the dynamite. Thanks, runs away. That does get a chuckle from me every time I and boom. So Flynn escapes. Everybody, all of his buddies are dead, but he's gonna hop on the ferry with the soldiers. All right. So the ferry is headed to the island. So this lady's a lesbian. I don't know why I felt the need to point that out in such a straight ahead fashion, but they seem to make a continuously make a point of it in this film. And the hot dog fork to the head. So See, like that's I get it. It's kind of the Romero way of, like Sweeney says, start thinking of ways to kill people. I mean, that's what we watch these films for, to see zombies get killed in interesting ways, which might be an interesting top 10 to do at some point. I was thinking about the other day, top 10 zombie deaths, cool ways for zombies to die. It's another raising the question of, if you swallow the blood of a zombie, does that turn you into a zombie? Because I mean, like I said, which they showed earlier, you don't have to get bitten by zombies to die and come back. I guess if you were to ingest zombie blood, maybe it would make you sick and kill you that way. I fucking know. I don't think George knew or cared at this point. It's like, I got somewhere to get. We're gonna get there. So. There's some zombies in the cars here on the ferry. See, there's just, I don't know. There's something missing about these people. Are just too okay with everything that's going on. And what I mean by that, I mean and I think that's the thing that most modern zombie films are missing now. I think we as a society have become so accustomed to the zombie genre and the idea of what zombies are, and some people have just become fascinated completely with the idea of zombies taking over the world at some point. Um, that it's kind of hard to put yourself in a mindset of like, okay, what if this really happened? How would people, you know, I mean, God, would people lost their minds, over, COVID? People didn't know how to mentally deal with that. Um, so, a lot of these films now, it's just, John Wayne, I got this, bam, shoot him in the head. And I don't think that's what George was really interested in portraying at this point in his film. Like I said, I think he just wanted to make a western or something, and get the idea across of two warring factions who couldn't agree um, on what to do, and the zombies are just kind of byproducts at this point. See, perfect example there. Just the way that this character reacts to seeing a zombie. It's at this point, it's just like, oh god, another one. All right, let me shoot it in the head. Let me kill it. This one, he's going to set its head on fire and then light a cigarette and then give it sweet chin music over a fucking rail here. I remember this. I was just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know. If you think it's if you think it's cool, I don't know. It's just too. I don't know. There's a certain humanity that's missing from these characters, I think. And now we're back on the island, Plum Island. And like I said, this stuff's beautiful. I mean, I think George loves shooting here and loves shooting this stuff. Gave the film scope and a look that I don't think a lot of people expect from a zombie film. You know, it's in the daylight, sunny day, trees, and which is one thing I appreciated about this film a lot the first time I saw it. You know, the ocean in the background here. Pussyfoot. It's a pussy of a river. I do love that line. I like this character, Kenneth Walsh or Welsh, I think. Good performance. Zombie mailman. So again, we're touching on the idea that zombies have a memory. They remember their lives before they died. And I guess the Muldoons are just trying to keep them in this. I don't know. I guess this would be hell. Keep them, trapped in a perpetual, you know, whatever their job or whatever they did in their previous life was. Now they're getting shot at. So this always confused me. So the Crockett character takes the bullet for Kenny, but Kenny ends up dying anyway. I guess the bullet went through Crockett, and but are they not wearing body armor? I mean, I don't know, man. It's a very anticlimactic. Now he's now he's beating the dead body of Kenny, and oh, they just O'Flynn shot him in the head. Had to do it. Now he's gonna beat up O'Flynn. I don't like this character, the Crockett, Nicotine Crockett character or whatever. And now here comes the zombie riding a horse, which. Wow. Why? I don't understand why George felt like it was a good idea to have a zombie riding a horse in this film. So I still don't understand how Kenny dies in this, but he's dead now. So I guess this is where they dump the bodies in this pond here. Uh, It's an angry zombie who is asleep. So I guess these are actually people that O'Flynn sent over on the boat, and the Muldoons killed them. So, is there any chance on Earth that if Twilight of the Dead ends up getting made, I'm on. I mean, can it? I want to say, can it be worse than this? I think so. Like I said, there's just something about this film that just it's not working. Seamus Muldoon. As if you didn't know that these guys were Irish. This guy's name is Seamus Muldoon. So this is a beautiful shot, actually, of the two guys riding the horses down to the I don't know what you'd call that, the zombie farm here, and they got the looks like they're using the same like hook and collar gimmicks that they use in Day of the Dead. The zombie gets a pitchfork through the foot. The zombie eats a hat for some reason. So I don't understand this. So Muldoon is his whole thing is to, well, the zombie's foot came off. And now we're gonna shoot that zombie. So if his whole thing is to protect and save and not kill the zombies, but yeah, we just watched a scene where they just shot a shitload of zombies for no other fucking reason than the fact that they were in their vicinity. I don't understand that. So I guess they're trying to teach the zombies. Okay. So they're trying to teach the zombies to eat something other than people. So they got a zombie here in a pen with a pig. So okay, that is an interesting. Okay, so they try to explain it here a little bit. They're killing the ones that are showing no progress. So I guess Muldoon's trying to be the doctor. Like, it's funny. This film really does mirror Day of the Dead in a lot of the ways. Not in quality. Don't get me wrong. But some of the ideas and then the way that the characters are laid out. So like Muldoon here is trying to teach the zombies to eat something other than people, trying to teach them to eat animals. If they don't show, like he just said, if they don't, they don't show proper or whatever the fuck he just said. They don't show that there's any progress being made there, and then I guess they're just gunning them down. I don't know. I'm losing a little light here. Like I said, they were using the little poles with the hook on them, with the zombies with the collars. There are some Day of the Dead elements in this. It's interesting. Maybe this film will age like Day of the Dead, and in 10, 15 years, people will see it for the brilliant film that it actually is. I doubt it, but you never know. I wasn't a fan of Day of the Dead the first time I saw it, so it took me a few viewings before I kind of unlocked the brilliance of Day of the Dead. So I guess they're saying that they're trying to give you the idea that O'Flynn's daughter is now dead, and she's a zombie, and she is a horse riding zombie, which is, if anything, you can say you've never seen that before. So that, I guess that's a positive. I always say I want to see a film, or I want to see something that I haven't seen before. So I guess that checks this box, or this checks that box for that. I don't fucking know. You know, for a hero character, he's very unlikable. The Crockett, Alan Van Sprang's character. I guess George really liked working with this actor because he put him in all three of the later Dead films. So he may be a nice guy in real life, but he comes off very unlikable in this film, and pretty much all three films. Uh-oh. Oh yeah, I completely forget. They're so apparently O'Flynn's daughter. Uh, he has two daughters. They're twins, and they both ride horses. And one's a zombie and one's not. Yeah, I don't know. This is one of the worst dialogue scenes in the film, I think. Small towns give birth to small people, but you're not a small person. What are you, like 6 feet? That's. Now we're literally just. This entire scene is them talking about who's taller than who. Jesus Christ. So the Cisco character is about to die. And I guess if you do ingest zombie blood, you I guess that would make you sick and kill you. So this is Cisco's death. think it's one thing about this film too is it gets really slow at times. This is one of those moments. And she just shot that motherfucker right in the head. Not a bad effect though. Practical blood, so another plus. All those damn old dudes. I really don't mind the Western aesthetic of this film. There aren't very. I mean, anybody else think of a zombie Western? I'm sure there's some straight to DVD or sci-fi movie or something out there. Zombies in the Wild West. So Crockett's character has been shot. He refuses to do anything about it. Now he has collapsed into the floor. And now the kid is run out into the forest. How much longer is this fucking thing? The movie really comes to a fucking crawl. Oh, I think now we're about to meet the twin sister. The old Flynn's getting back together. I don't really know what all to say about these scenes. There's not a lot going on here. I mean, so we got a dinner scene here with Seamus Muldoon and Tomboy, I think, is the female soldier's name. Yes. Just kidding. Just kidding. Don't. For those of you that are not watching, I just Muldoon said, "Women and children have their place. Children in bed or something, and women in the kitchen." But I think it's just his wife is chained up in the kitchen doing the quote unquote woman's work. She's a zombie. Yeah, I don't mean to make it sound like he just chained his wife up in the kitchen, but it's basically what he did. She's dead, so it's fine. Now, the way that these characters are kind of written, the O'Flynn's and the Muldoons, two different, uh, two different ways of thinking. But I think the way that he wrote um, this Muldoon character, it does try to kind of make him seem a little more, I don't know, a little more evil, crazy, I guess. And O'Flynn's a little more likable, even though he's probably a little crazy too. So is that George saying that he sides with one side more so than the other? Yeah, who knows? Could just be the performance, the actors. Who knows? Yep. So now we see his wife is now a zombie, chained up in the kitchen, doomed to cook his meals for eternity. Another beautiful shot here. And I noticed another thing on. Which may explain some of the weaker performances or moments in the film. I noticed that quite a few of the effects, shots, a lot of the second unit stuff, I don't think George was around for. I don't think George really had much of a hand in. I think it was left up to the his assistant director, second unit, and it just shows the importance of having a good AD and a good second unit crew. Tom Dubinsky was not working on this film, I can tell you that. Neither was Christine Romero or Nick Mastandria. Or I think it kind of comes through because you can definitely tell when something was just kind of second unit, and so maybe that plays a part in it. I don't know. Yeah. So now this is with the reveal with the twins, I guess. There's two of them. What a twist. I don't know who this actress is. She's not a bad actress, but she's definitely, you can definitely tell, you definitely tell she's an actress. She's probably a huge pain in the ass in real life. I've known a few actresses, and they're pain in the asses. They're very, I mean, comes with the territory, I guess. A little overly dramatic, and but you can tell in the documentary when they're talking to her, and just some of her responses and reactions. That Mexican fella. So I guess we're going to the big climax here. The war between the Muldoons and the O'Flyns. And again, just the description of what Twilight of the Dead is supposedly supposed to be. It sounds very similar to this, the two factions and two. I guess well, in Twilight of the Dead they talk about two factions of zombies. I don't know how you can have a two separate factions of zombies. This one we have two factions of people, and then the military group in the middle of it. So I guess we got some daddy issues here. Father daughter argument. I think the thing that just doesn't work about this though for me is that you don't love any of the characters, so you don't really care about any of the interpersonal relationships or issues that any of these characters have with one another because you don't really care one way or the other. It's like in Dawn of the Dead when you know that scene where Fran and Steven are having dinner. Yeah, and Steven proposes to Fran and Fran rejects him, and you care about the characters, so you care whether or not you care about Steven getting rejected. You feel bad for him, and you may resent Fran for it, or you feel something for you like the characters, so you react to those certain little moments that those characters have together, and then it cuts to Peter with the champagne bottle, toasting Roger. I mean, I don't think you get that with this film at all. I don't think it works. I think that's there's just too much going on here. Too many characters, too many twists and turns in terms of the plot of like what are we doing? Like what's the plan? Like I don't feel like there's much of a goal here for these characters. I guess other than just fighting over the island, but I guess, that's the biggest setback in this film. And you can point out, bad CGI, a few poor performances here and there, some corny dialogue, but all that, there's plenty of that and tons of films that I love. But I just think there's too many characters, too much going on, too many characters going like earlier in the film when Kenny dies, that should be a moment, where ideally you would want your audience to feel something. It's like imagine in Land of the Dead if you know uh, Charlie's character gets killed, and Simon Baker's character is the one that like takes away. Like switch those characters. You would feel bad because you like Charlie. You like that dichotomy. It just doesn't work in this film. It's because I think there's just too much going on here. Too many people to care about. That you end up caring about none of them. There are elements to these characters that you like that are entertaining or what have you, but if they all die in the end, it's not like it's really going to affect your day, I guess. I think that's the biggest setback in this film. So now we got a horde of zombies coming out. Hopefully, we're inching towards the finale of this sucker. Because I love George. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad he made this film. I'm glad this film exists. But it's definitely not his finest hour, not his strongest material, I guess you could say. So I think here's the showdown. Here's the old horse riding zombie. And yeah, you can point out stupid shit in this film that you probably don't like, like a zombie riding a horse or bad Southern accents, which I pointed out earlier. So I think this kid's trying to make a indecent proposition to Janet, whoever the hell that was, one of the twins, the non-dead zombie, not the zombie riding the horse, the live one. What would you do with $1 million? Nothing at this point. The word, like, what are you fucking spending money on? See, that's another thing that's confusing about the plot of this. Like, they're, I don't know. So everybody's getting their guns back, and we're about to have a big hey rube. They just shot that motherfucker right in the leg. And again, like, it's too much going on here. Too many side stories. Well, that dumb bitch just got bit. She's done for. The horse saves the day. Everybody's a really bad shot in this film. So we got a shootout going now. Nobody can hit anything except for the broadside of a barn, which they've hit numerous times here. So you can't say they can't hit the broadside of a barn. I'll be here all week, folks. And here comes. Let's see if we can point out. See if we can pick out Felcher. I know Michael Felcher and Uncle Creepy. I think it was like an internet personality, horror personality back in the day. Anyway, they both play zombies here, and apparently they tear old boy apart here. And now the zombies trying to get back. There's Felcher. And yeah, this sucker's about to get torn in half. Again, there's so much going on and nothing that anybody cares about. Ah, not a bad effect there. It's definitely no Joe Pilato and Day of the Dead getting torn in half, but not bad. There's a big spinal cord. I guess the difference in this one is they're tearing the guy in half while he's on his stomach as opposed to being on his back. So we're seeing it from a different angle. I guess you can do that. Again, this feels like Day of the Dead, the way that it's kind of playing out. Except you don't care about any of these people as you did in Day of the Dead. So now we're at the big zombie feast scene here. While the humans are still fighting amongst each other for no real reason. At least not one that anybody cares about. Okay, not bad. Not a bad effect. Okay, that wasn't bad. That was a pretty good gag. And they stab a zombie in the dick, and the zombie says, "No thanks." Again, this score is awful. The score is about as generic of a fucking score as you could get. It's just background noise. I wonder if a different score would help this film a little bit. I doubt it, but could John Harrison save this film? Or Donald Rubenstein? Or Goblin? Let's put a Goblin soundtrack to this. Let's see if it see if it helps. At least we would be able to, hear some Goblin while we're watching this. Son of a bitch shot him in the back. So maybe George is trying to. Oh, there we go. O'Flynn gets him. So I guess Muldoon is more of the villain in this, more so than Flynn. Now everybody's dead, and who fucking cares? And of course, you have to end every film with somebody saying it's over. And now they're about to eat a horse. This is kind of funny coming up when Patrick O'Flynn, I guess is his name. Very Irish. These are very Irish people. Patrick O'Flynn and Seamus Muldoon. So he ends up shooting his daughter just to prove a point to her, I guess. This would have been a perfect film to just kill every fucking body in this movie. Because I don't think anybody would really cry about it. So we're coming up on the conclusion of this film. Do I feel any differently about it now than before? Not really. No, can't say I do. Not a big fan. Like I said, I think just kind of pinpointing a few things that just doesn't work about it. There's like a lack of humanity with the characters. There's too much going on. There's too many characters for one thing. Too many intertwining plots. And now the zombies are eating the horse. This is a I do love this last shot of the film here with the two standing there with the full moon in the background. They both just raise their guns and just start shooting empty guns at each other, even in death. There you have it. Survival of the dead. We survived. Survival of the dead. So, like I said, do I feel any differently about this film now? Let me go ahead and turn this off. Do I feel any differently about this film now that we've watched it again? Not really. No. I do appreciate a few things a little more than maybe I did previous to it. Like some of the performances. Like I don't think any of the performances were terrible. Um, not as much shitty CGI as I remember. I think it's just the gag with the fire extinguisher and the zombie's eyes popping out and all that. I think that just stuck in my brain for so long that that's just what I associated with this film and the effects in it. But it's mostly a practical effects film. Um, so the CGI is not as bad as some of the stuff in Diary of the Dead, even or even Land of the Dead. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's definitely not one I'm going to be revisiting anytime soon. Uh, will it be better? If Twilight of the Dead gets made, will this be better than that? It is a George film. George did direct this film, so that does give it the edge a little bit in my book. Um, I just don't think that movie's going to happen. I just don't. I think it's really interesting. I think it's literally just. I've seen this happen quite a bit lately with Night of the Living Dead 2 that was supposed to come out. I remember at Living Dead Weekend, I saw a booth I forget who was doing it. Fuck, I can't think of who it was, but somebody's trying to raise some money and some interest in doing a Knight Rider sequel, Knight Riders 2. So they filmed a little teaser trailer. I think that's just the way that a lot of filmmakers are trying to finance small independent films now. Is just trying to, do a little teaser trailer or do a press release, trying to, you know, drum up some interest in the property first before securing the financing for it, before it can actually be made. And I think that's an interesting, it is an interesting way of financing independent film in this day and age. Um, to me, that's what I think they're doing with this Twilight of the Dead thing. It may work, it may not. Who knows? But in an age with social media and YouTube and so many different ways to build interest in a property, because I mean, if you can go to an investor and say, look at our social media page, there all these people are excited to see this film. We got, however many thousands of followers. They're waiting for this film. There's a built-in audience for this. Um, so give us a little money to make it, and, we'll make it. I think that's an interesting way of trying to raise money to get a project made. Um, and it's something that didn't exist. You could have done this back when George was, making films in the 70s, and you kind of had to go. All you had was a script and an idea, and you go to your financial backers and say, "Here's the screenplay," and you know now you can literally point to, "Hey, we made this little teaser trailer, and look how many likes it got on YouTube," or um, there's interest in this, there's an audience for it, we'll make our money back. If all of these people pay however much money to see the film, you're going to make your money back and plus some. So it's interesting. It's an interesting way of doing things these days. But yeah, I think that's really where we're at with it. We'll see. They like I said, I think this is going to be an ongoing thing. We'll see who they tap to direct it. They already said they got somebody they're in negotiations with. Um, so I don't know. Will there be more after Survival? Uh, I think a lot of people were hoping no, but it looks like there may be. So we'll see. But so yeah, that was the Survival of the Dead watch along. I'm glad I went back and revisited it after quite a few years. I don't think my opinion's changed on it much at all. It's definitely my least favorite uh, Dead film, and probably my least favorite Romero film, to be honest. Well, I don't know. It'd probably be between Survival and Two Evil Eyes, to be honest with you. Two Evil Eyes is one that I definitely need to go back and rewatch again. I just watched it not too long ago. I remember thinking it's not as bad as I remember. And to me, Two Evil Eyes isn't even bad in a way. It's just, it feels, I don't know, uninspired or something. But I don't know. Maybe we'll do a watch along of that, and I'll see, what the hell. If you guys like these watch alongs, let me know. I haven't done a whole lot of them. I did one for There's Always Vanilla months ago. I know I did one for Night of the Living Dead, a live stream watch along for that a couple of months back. It's just something, was in the mood to watch Survival of the Dead again, give it another shot. So I figure I might as well come on here and do it with you fine folks. So yeah, I think that'll do it for me tonight, guys. I appreciate you hanging out with me tonight and helping me get through Survival of the Dead once again. But I'm not sure what I got coming up next. Like I said, it really just depends on where I'm at and what I want to do next week. Like I said, maybe I'll do I got a couple of top 10 ideas. Still thinking about doing that live auction. I think that would be pretty cool if I can get enough people on the live stream to really have a lively bidding. Because I mean, fuck, if I come on here and there's 3 or 4 people show up on here and We're all bidding. You're all bidding on the same thing. It's I don't know. It may not work quite as well. Um, so we'll see. I'll see if I can garner a little bit of interest in that, and maybe I'll do because, like I said, I got tons of shit here that be looking to part ways with to some people that'd be interested. So yeah, we'll see what I'm doing next. But I got work in the morning. It's getting pretty late here, so I'm gonna hop off here. I appreciate you guys checking it out. Um, and yeah, if any more news for Twilight of the Dead pops up between here and next weekend, I'll probably hop on and do another short breaking news stream or something. But yeah, I appreciate you guys checking this out. I don't know how many people are going to watch this because most of the time anybody sees Survival of the Dead, they're going to be like, I'm out on it. But it is what it is. I'm glad I went back and rewatched it. So appreciate you guys checking it out. Have a great rest of the week. And as always, stay scared. Night, everybody. Have a good one.